volunteers in Singapore to help bring at least 8,500 postal votes back to Malaysia. Okay. So helping with the election happening in Malaysia. Okay. Volunteers in Singapore, I believe also Malaysians, right? Living in Singapore. Yeah. A group of volunteers in Singapore are helping these voters exercise their civic duty. The One Third Media Movement, which is a non-governmental organization backed by Malaysian Youth Democracy Movement, Undi 18, has stationed more than 20 volunteers around Singapore since last Friday. Okay, blah blah blah. Yeah. Malaysians in Singapore allowed for the first time to cast their ballots through post for a general election. Yeah. Okay, so other voters split on whether to return. Okay, even though postal voting has presented a unique opportunity to cast their votes, other Malaysians did not want to choose this option. Right? They still want to go back to. They don't like the idea of postal voting, but they are still stuck between staying here, not going back, and going back to vote. Right? They are a bit stuck. Yeah. This is from today. Right? This is yesterday's news, published yesterday. What else do we have? Chinese one, Channel 8. 游子特地请假回乡投票，料下午后将有更多人通关。Today, this one published today, 1:36 p.m. Right? So because Malaysia votes tomorrow. So right, last minute going back to cast their ballots, cast their votes. Yeah. Okay. So, 手头族 Jamir, so first time voter, Jamir, first time voter. Right? Wow, full coverage. Wow, even got photo of the Malaysian side. Yeah. Channel 8 News. Wow, such a good coverage. Anyway, the headline means,游子is like they stay in Singapore for maybe study or work, right? And then they are now returning, right? Especially take leave to return back to vote, right? And then there may be more people, right? So, guys, this 2 days better not try to cross the border into Malaysia for shopping or for a short trip, right? Because these guys are going back to cast their ballots in Malaysian election called by currently caretaker PM, right? And belonging to I believe the BN spin-off party alliance, right? The other one, the PN, I think they call it the PN. Yeah. All right. Versus, of course, the opposition. You have both the BN, which is now in opposition, as well as PH, Pakatan Harapan, or Hope Alliance. In Chinese, call it 希望联盟, Ximeng, right? So, of course, I believe most people who want change, right, are going to back PH, Pakatan Harapan, right? Ximeng, right? And which DAP, the Democratic Action Party, the 民主行动党, 民行党, right, is part of this alliance. And yeah. Okay, so we see a lot of coverage. We see a lot of coverage in our Singapore press. I mean, I do understand they are our neighbors, and Singapore and Malaysia has always been very good neighbors. I don't know if that is a correct characterization of our relationship. Very good neighbors. All right. There's a saying like, 新马一家亲, which is like Singapore and Malaysia are one family. right? I think no one doubts that. No one doubts that we were one country, right? Under Malaysia, we were one country. Malaya, Sabah, Sarawak, and Singapore merged to form Malaysia, right, in 1963. And then Singapore got out of the federation to become independent in 1965. That's why August 9th is our National Day, right? So our relationship has always been one that is marked by very close and dependent ties, I would say, right? We depend on Malaysia for many things, for everything from water to a lot of food items produced in Malaysia, right? Cross over the causeway over here to be sold here. Water, right? Our water is a lot of it is from Johor, right? Getting treated there, and then through the pipeline it gets transported into Singapore for our use. Malaysia also depends on us for a lot of business. JB in particular, right? Very dependent on Singapore tourists, right? Singapore arrivals to shop and spend money over there. We also buy properties in Malaysia, right? And a lot of other things. So there is no doubt that we enjoy a very close relationship, right? And in Chinese we call it 唇亡齿寒, right? When the lips are frozen, right, are dead, your teeth also feels the pain, right? So it's like a very close and interdependent relationship, right? I wouldn't doubt that. At the same time, isn't it funny that Singapore press gives so much attention to things going on, political events going on in Malaysia, be it elections or new parties form, what did Mahathir say, even whether or not it concerns Singapore. Singapore press is so concerned, following up so closely, correspondence from CNA, you have ST, you have Zhao Bao, right, and what have you, right? Are they similarly and equally concerned and providing equal coverage when it comes to Singapore news, when it comes to Singapore political news, right, when it comes to Singapore political happenings? Are they just as responsive and willing to report in the national press? I don't know. It's something for us to think about, isn't it? Right? Like when other countries have things going on, and especially when there are ugly things going on in other countries, right? We like to highlight it. We like to highlight it in our media so that our people will read the news and go, so and so country not doing so well. We are so blessed to be living in Singapore. Let's not be like them. Let's keep our peace here. Let's keep our order here. Everything is like good and rosy here, and then very loan elsewhere. Same thing goes with US, right? What Donald Trump versus Biden, NATO, versus Russia, and then we like to highlight. We like to highlight. Not that what they are reporting is not true, but then we like to highlight these negative things about whoever lah, right? Yeah, but then when it comes to Singapore, wow, everything is nice. Yeah, so this other news we see is on this opposition parties offering, right, in Johor offer free bus rides and carpool services. Is this on May 9th also? This one is 2018. So this one was the last election. Yeah, not the current one. Yeah, so this one. But I heard this time around there are also, right? I remember in the news. I can't find the news, but I remember seeing it. All right, some volunteers also, providing this free bus ride service to Malaysia for Malaysians living in Singapore to vote, to go back to vote. I have no qualms about Malaysians being very concerned about their own politics, of course, and wanting to take part in change or to be involved in their own political happenings there. After all, they are Malaysian citizens, and as citizens they have the duty to be concerned about their own country and to be a part of the future decision-making process, right? But at the same time, just want to share a different opinion, right? Because we see so much hoo-ha, and it's as if everything is so, yeah. But you see, we need to understand that this time round, actually, Malaysians are not as hot as in 2018, right? When Harapan really had the chance to overtake government for the very first time in Malaysia, because Malaysia, just like Singapore, has not seen a party take over for 50 years. Just like PAP running this pseudo one-party state in Singapore since 1965, BN, Barisan Nasional, has been the ruling party, or rather ruling alliance, in Malaysia since 1963, right? So sama-sama lah, huh? So in 2018, I can understand and I fully support, in fact, Malaysians going back, and my friend in particular, right? Friends that I know who are Malaysians, they are all very enthusiastic about this, and they all went back, and they have my full support. Why not? Because yes, I believe that Malaysia needs change. I believe that BN is this corrupt, very endowed one-party system, right, that is not doing good for Malaysia and Malaysians, right? So why would I not support Harapan, which then at that time was made up of DAP, which we know to be quite a progressive party, quite a party that supports equality of races, equality of opportunities for everyone, and also progress, openness, political, more liberty. And then also you have component parties like Anwar's PKR, Mahathir's Bersatu, as well as the Islamic Party, right, the PAS. And that PAS later split into the more moderate wing of it, which is now still in Harapan, which is Amanah, and also the PAS itself, the more radical Islamic wing, is still PAS, which is now in the on the other side. Yeah, so at that time there was no reason not to support Harapan, right? In 2018, that is. And in fact, Harapan really won, right? Mahathir, led by Mahathir as the Prime Minister again, who became Prime Minister again, right? They really won, and I think that's good for Malaysia. And of course, at that time, our Singapore papers were very against it, right? We were like, because we were wary of Mahathir's rule, and Mahathir is may not be so friendly. He's a Trump-like person, right? So he like maybe not so friendly with Singapore, and then our PAP leaders are very scared. So at that time our papers were like, oh yeah, I support change, but then well, if it's Mahathir, then I better talk bad about him, right? Yeah, because this is like our enemy, and we have always been using Malaysia, Mahathir as our imaginary enemy, just to spur some stupid patriotism from the Singaporean. Yeah, so that is the kind of rhetoric from our newspapers lah, right? But this time round it is very different, right? This time round it is very different. So Harapan won and lost power, right? Because Mahathir resigned from his party and from prime ministership, and then there's this whole mess that occurred, backdoor government, whatever, right? So currently it is not Harapan in government. So Harapan wants to become government again, right? It has a chance, but people are less hopeful, people are less enthusiastic, I should say, right? It's unlike in 2018, where there's absolutely no reason not to support Harapan, right? Yeah, but this time around, even my friend told me, my Malaysian friend says he's not going back to vote. He's not going back to vote, and I understand why, right? Because even on the Harapan side, there are some disappointing shows, right? There are some shows of disappointing actions by Harapan, whether it's DAP or even PKR. You look at the state of PKR today. Mahathir just resigned, and so people are not that positive about even Harapan now, right? Of course, I mean, if given a choice, if I were a Malaysian, yeah, in this case I'm also a Chinese, right, and I would be more willing to see change to the system in Malaysia, I would still go back and vote Harapan. I would still go back to support the alliance that DAP is in, Harapan, right? Even though maybe, you know, that people say, oh, you know, wow, win also no use lah. You know, win also no use. Just like in Singapore, Workers' Party win, so what? Opposition win, so what? You only got 2 seats. You only got 10 seats, so what? You cannot change anything. But I think it is still important, right, to send them in to have a chance, right? So they may not be able to cause change today, right? Because it's not so easy. Change is not as easy as people think it is, right? If you think change can come snap like that, like how Thanos snapped his finger and then the whole world changed, I think you are very 天真, right? You're very 天真 in believing in that, right? You're very naive, right? Change doesn't come so easily. Some people blame DAP for, you know, not living up to its promises. You know, its promise to 承认统考, right, which is to recognize the certificates from the Chinese schools, and then, you know, it's not so easy, right? Because you see, and also another thing, you are working in an alliance. You're working with Mahathir's party. You are working with so many other parties, so many other interest groups involved, right? So your one party may be promising something, but the other component parties are not supportive of it, and then worst come to worst, you have an education minister at that time who is not very firm and not very decisive and not able to push for this change. Mahathir himself didn't become education minister because he promised that, you know, he doesn't want to take up the role of cabinet minister and the prime minister at the same time. So he had to live up to this promise. Therefore, I mean, it could also well be an excuse lah. Right, so he couldn't push for this change, and many Chinese in Malaysia are very disappointed at DAP, you know, not living up to its promise, blah blah blah. For me, I am more understanding, right? I do know the difficulties, right? Change doesn't come so easily, right? It's not you want means you can, right? So the same thing in Singapore. Some people say, oh, Workers' Party win liao, so what? Nothing changed. You see, so certain things you got to. Your expectations cannot be too high, right? Your wishes can be very high. Yeah? You can hope for a lot of change. And indeed, we want that change. But we also got to adjust our expectations a little bit, right? We got to understand that sometimes the world doesn't work the way we want it. Right? So some conditions are just not there for certain changes to take place. So we need to be a little bit more understanding. We need to be a bit more patient. You wait until, let's say, Harapan win more than 60% of the seats. You think they cannot effect change? Just like in Singapore, you think if WP, SDP and PSP all win 60% of the seats in parliament, you think PAP dare to do anything? Of course not. You think the opposition won't be able to check the Massex books, check GIC, check this, check that? You think cannot, man? You think still will be PAP own self check own self, man? Cannot be what? It's about how much you can do with how much power you have, my ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so on the one hand, I am sympathetic and still supportive of DAP Harapan. On the other hand, I also do understand why Malaysians get a bit disheartened, get a bit disillusioned, don't want to go back to vote. I think it is perfectly all right. It is their full right not to want to participate. You see, you have a right to participate, you have a right not to participate. You have the right to say, yes, I want this. You have a right to say, no, I don't want this. You also have a right to not say anything. You have the right to dissent. You have the right to agreement. You also should have the right to no opinion, to abstinence. You can abstain. Even at the United Nations, you can vote a spoilt vote. It's an abstention vote. Even in Parliament, you can vote abstention vote. Right? You go to the polling station. Even in Singapore with compulsory voting, you go to the polling station, you can vote a spoilt vote. You can vote yes, PAP. You can vote no, I want opposition. You can also spoil your vote. You don't cross any box. Yeah, or Even better, you can don't go to the polling station. But of course, in Singapore, we can't do that because we have compulsory voting. So compulsory voting means if you don't vote this time, the next time you can't vote. You simply lose your right to vote, because with our compulsory voting rule, you have to go to the polling station. And if you fail to do so, you fail to turn up, your attendance is 0, the next time round you can't vote. And you need to pay a fine of $50 to reinstate your name in the registers. That's because Singapore has a compulsory voting system. Other countries, most countries do not have this system, right? Most countries you register to vote. So you have the right to not participate, which I think is an important right. Yeah. So if you register, you get the ballot and you go and cast your vote. Whether you do so or not is up to you. It's your right. So that is the thing. So I am very understanding towards Malaysians not going back to vote. I think this, and the way they see it is there's this whole wayang, right, about going back to vote. In 2018, they understood the rationale, the desire for change, but this time round, it is just not so hot anymore. It's just not so, the enthusiasm is not there anymore, and we need to understand it. And we in Singapore, the thing we can do, since we are not Malaysians, is to express our understanding to this, right? There's no point following all this rhetoric and all this narrative from the Straits Times today and whatever not mainstream media trying to blast us with all this propaganda, right? With this overblown, to me, right, coverage of Malaysian elections, and they don't go in depth, They don't go in depth into the whys and hows. They only tell you who wins, who talk what. They want to paint this picture that, you know, is very messy, right? There are things who want to change. People should go back to vote. You know, free rights, volunteers. Singapore media likes to highlight all these things, right? As if Malaysians are like so poor thing. Yeah. What about Singaporeans? What about Singapore? How are we doing? Time to think about it.